I'm Autumn Reynolds. I'm 19 years old. I got in an automobile accident in September of '06, and as a result, I'm an L1 paraplegic. I was a passenger in the vehicle that rolled several times. At first, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I had broken both of my legs until the EMT asked me to wiggle my toes, and I just remember being really scared. I remember the Life Flight crew taking me into the emergency room and telling me that my parents were on their way to meet me there. I remember waking up at certain times when people would come and visit me, and I remember getting a blessing from my bishopric, which was really comforting. And I just remember looking at the bottom of my bed and seeing family members just crying. It was hard to see other people hurting because of me. I remember sitting up for the first time after my first surgery with my dad, holding my hand, and it hurt really bad, but I remember it was such a joy because that was such a big milestone in my recovery process. One of the main things that made me the person I am today and have such a good attitude was my little sisters, and seeing them helping me and wanting to do anything they can to help. They're just such a blessing in my life. The first surgery that they did on my back, they went in and they replaced my vertebrae that was broken, so they just put in an artificial vertebrae. The second surgery I had, they put rods on both sides of my spine to keep it stable. The third surgery that I had, I actually got staph infection in my wound in my back. It was opening and tunneling through my back. After putting me on heavy antibiotics, they decided that it wasn't working, and so they took me into a third surgery where they opened my back and they cleaned it all out with antibiotics and sewed it back shut. A couple weeks after that, we noticed a rash starting around my stomach area, and I developed Redsman's, is what they call it. It was just a rash from my head to my toes. It just felt like a very bad sunburn. All of this happened while I was in the hospital, and it was a very hard thing. I was actually in the hospital on my birthday. In the hospital, I had to start from scratch and learn everything all over again. They had to teach me how to transfer and to the toilet or to a car, a seat in the car. They had to teach me how to learn to go to the bathroom on my own, and that was a really hard thing, probably one of the hardest things in the whole entire hospital. I learned how to cook and to get products that were higher up on the shelves that I wouldn't be able to reach sitting. I remember cooking eggs and brownies, just learning how to use the kitchen all over again. I remember it being a big milestone when I learned how to crawl. It was a really hard thing, and I remember during therapy I was just crying when that happened because it just hurt my back and it was just really hard. I remember the first time they put me in braces and walking between the parallel bars. That was really hard because I just had no balance. I had no control over my legs. I would try to step and my step would just be out of control. I couldn't control where I was placing my foot. So that was really hard. There was very many times that I almost had fallen, and I had to have two therapists to help me so that I could walk with that. The first time I ever left the hospital, it was really hard. I hadn't learned how to transfer anything yet then. My stepdad actually had to pick me up and put me into the car. Taking my wheelchair apart was just a process then. No one knew how to do it very well, and it just took 10 or 15 minutes just to get me in the car to leave. That's when I really figured out that life would be really different and a lot more complicated and not the same as it was before. Prior to the accident, I was very active in cheerleading and tumbling. I started dancing when I was 5 years old. Then I tried out for cheer, and I found out that I had a passion for cheer also. My family is very into boating, and we go out a lot, and I would go tubing and water skiing. Water skiing was my favorite. The summer before my accident is when I really started to water ski. I was really nervous when I got up at first, and so I just dropped the rope, and it was really scary. But finally I got the nerves up, and I water skied all over the lake. So that was my favorite hobby with the boating, was water skiing. Every summer we have what's called we have a Cox reunion on my mom's side of the family, and we actually go down there the first weekend in every August, and we camp down there and we ride ATVs around and have big old bonfires and things like that, and we play water balloon volleyball, so that's fun. One of the other things I liked to do before the accident was hang out with youth groups from my church. There's so many things that we did. We also like to go swimming, and we especially like going to the gateway and playing in the fountains and getting soaking wet and just running around together. But the main thing was hanging out with each other and having a good time. I remember going to school in elementary school and all the awesome achievements that I did. In high school, I actually, before the accident, I was in honors classes. I always had over a 3.0 GPA. After the accident, my academics dropped. It was very hard to stay in school and very hard to focus when I had other things going on in my life. The first time I came home from the accident, it was a lot different. So it was really hard. In order to get up to the kitchen or to someone's room, I would have to crawl up the stairs or crawl down the stairs. After coming home, I was still in outpatient therapy. There, they taught me how to do wheelies in my wheelchair just in case I had to get upstairs. My therapist taught me how to fall backwards in my wheelchair, so if I fell, say I was on the street, if I fell on the street, then I'd be able to get back in my wheelchair by myself if no one was there. Putting my shoes on is really hard. At first, it was really hard because I was really stiff. My muscles weren't flexible, and so I had to, it hurt to put them on because I had to pull my feet up. I've been playing the piano since I was like 5, I think. I've just been playing for a long time, and when my accident happened, my spine was in spinal shock, and so I had zero movement from the waist down, and I thought that I was not even going to be able to play the piano. One of the first times that I had left the hospital for a trip, I went to my old work, Kent's Market, and I saw all my co-workers and everyone there, which was really, really fun to see. It was hard to know that I couldn't go back and work there with everybody and be the same person that I was before working bagging and cashiering at that job. After the accident, things changed dramatically. I couldn't dance or cheer obviously anymore. One of my favorite things to do is watch my sisters. When they come home from dance class and tumbling class, and for them to say, "Autumn, Autumn, I got my back handspring, I got my back handspring by myself," or "I did my back bend by myself." It's really fun, and a lot of the times they go and jump on the trampoline outside, and that's really hard for me because I would spend hours and hours on the trampoline just doing backflips and learning new tricks that I'd try to make up. That would be really cool. But it's really hard for me now because I could go sit on the trampoline and have a good time with them, but it's a lot different, and I can't jump and show them cool tricks that I learned when I was littler. So that's really hard. That's a really hard thing, but I enjoy spending time with them.
Getting into my car is a little bit frustrating. It took a lot of practice. At first it was really hard to figure out how to do, but after trying it a lot of ways, you kind of figure out the easiest way. It's really frustrating when you forget something and you have to run in the house really quick, and then you have to get the whole wheelchair out, you know, wheel in the house, get back out here. It takes, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes just to do that, so it's really hard.
So the hardest part of the whole thing is my bowels and bladder and keeping that under control. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, like going on dates. You never know when you're going to have an accident, or, you know, when you have to go to the bathroom. And it's hard because the guys that you go out with have to carry you places, and sometimes it's really awkward. So one time I was at Walmart, and I had been sick the past couple days, and I didn't, you know, I felt okay, and I was just like, well, maybe I should wear a diaper just in case I have an accident, you know, because I couldn't control my bowels because, you know, I was sick. And so we get to Walmart, and I'm like, I was with my ex-boyfriend, and I really had to go to the bathroom. So I was like, Nick, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, just wait out here for me, I'll be out in a second. And I actually had an accident, and I was sitting there trying to clean it up, and it was really hard, you know, because it was on my pants, it was coming out the top, and it was just everywhere. And so I called my mom on the phone, and I said, Mom, what do I do? Nick can't come in the stall with me, can't come in the girls' bathroom, he can't help me out, you know, I can't do this by myself, I don't have clean clothes. And there was a lady in the stall next to me, and she felt really bad, and she knocked on my stall, and she said, Ma'am, I know you don't know me, but I feel really bad, and I was wondering if you would just need my help. And which I really did need her help. So I let this stranger in with me, and she helped me wipe, she helped me get cleaned up, and it was really, I was embarrassed, because being a 19-year-old girl, you don't do that, you know?
My name's Tammy Reynolds-Call. I'm a physical therapist. I'm also Autumn's mother. She is not currently participating in formal physical therapy, but we work together on an as-needed basis to keep her fully functional as much as she's able to do. So what we'll be doing today is demonstrating some of the techniques that we do, also some of the functional activities that she is able to do, that she has learned through physical therapy. So the first thing we're going to do is stretch Autumn's hamstrings. It's really important for her to maintain flexibility so that she doesn't injure herself when she tries to do some activities like getting in and out of her wheelchair. And she has really good flexibility at this point. Part of it is because she doesn't have muscle tone. So the hamstrings are good. She knows how to stretch this on her own as well. In fact, she could go much farther, but we don't want her to be too hyper flexible or too flexible. And she's come a long way with this. This left leg, she could hardly move in any direction after the accident because muscle pain and tightness. And we're stretching the rotators of her hips. The other thing we like to keep stretched and loose is her calves, because she doesn't have any movement below the knee at all. So we try to stretch the calf muscles, and these are quite tight. So that's a reason that she should be standing, because it helps to keep the muscles from tightening up and losing her range of motion in her ankles. The other thing that becomes a problem from her sitting in her chair too much is that a lot of times the knees will get tight because of being in a sitting position, and the hips will get tight to look like they're sitting in a chair. So we make sure that the knees, that's one reason we stretch the hamstrings, but we also stretch the muscles in the front of the hip for the same reason, to keep it so that when she stands up, she's not contracted over like she would be looking like her chair. So slide over to the edge a little bit. So one way to stretch that is just to bring her leg off the edge of the bed and let that hip stretch down. And then she can also bring her other knee towards her chest and pull up. And she feels this one. This is one that's always chronically tight because of sitting so much. She doesn't stand like we do to stretch those muscles out. So she has She used to have rods in her back. They were removed, and so now she has a little more flexibility, and she should be doing some arch-ups and press-ups to help maintain the flexibility in her back. You can see it's kind of flat right here, and that's a loss of flexibility in her back muscles. This also helps stretch out the hips and the knees so that she doesn't look like her chair, or can get out of that chair position. She doesn't have gluteus muscles in her buttocks, and so she doesn't have good control when she tries to get up onto her knees. Also with standing, it makes it hard for her to have good balance standing because she doesn't have some of the muscles required for balance control. Okay, so the reason we do this, the different positioning, is to help provide her stability so that if she wants to stand or walk, she has the abdominal core muscle strength to do that. So she's going to push up onto her knees. And I'm just going to provide some points of support. This is really hard for her. We take it for granted that we can kneel. She has to work really hard to compensate with stomach and back muscles for the lack of hip muscles that she has. Okay, and that's kind of hard on her back. It hurts her. Autumn's learned how to crawl, and that has come in handy for her when she wants to get up and down stairs and get around in places that are not wheelchair accessible. She can do that on her own. You can see that she has difficulty pulling her legs through, and that's because of weakness in the hip flexor muscles. She does have some muscle there, but it's weak. And you can see she has real trouble moving her legs backwards because that takes the back hip muscles that she doesn't have. So that's tough. And we're very fortunate that she has quad muscles in the front of the thighs, because otherwise she would have to be braced up above the knee so that the knee would not collapse when she tries to stand. So that's huge for her, that she can straighten out her knees. She has trouble here because she doesn't have push down. She can't push. So she has to use her arms to do it. And as a therapist, we stand back and make them do it anyway, because we won't always be there to help them. Yeah. She had many occasions when we would sit in the car and she would be crying because I would sit and make her take her wheelchair apart and put it in herself. She probably told you. And people would come walking by and look at me like I was the biggest jerk and say, "Can I help you?" She'd be crying. But now look at her. I mean, she does marvelous with it. The muscles that you have to stand and balance are in the calf and the ankle. And she doesn't have any movement there at all, so she has difficulty being able to stand without holding on to something. She will always need to have her hands holding on to either crutches or a walker, which makes her gait not real functional because you can't really carry anything with you. Or the main purpose for her gait is so that she can weight bear through her legs and prevent osteoporosis, because weight bearing is what keeps your bones dense and strong. So she should be doing this even if it's just for therapeutic reasons, not functional community ambulation. So she would not be able to do this if she didn't have quadriceps muscles in her thighs. So she's very fortunate that she has those. I'm just going to stand behind her just in case she loses her balance. So this is the extent of her balance skills. She has to keep her knees slightly bent to help her control her balance because her ankles don't do it for her. Concentrating. And this is pretty good. This was a great milestone for her to be able to stand without holding on her own. So she has to work really hard to place her feet properly because she doesn't have a lot of the hip muscles that help her to point her toe forward. That's up in the hip. And you can kind of see how her hips elevate on each side as she walks, and that's her compensation and her back muscles that she uses to help her swing her leg through. Because she doesn't have any knee bend, which you need to get your leg to swing through. You are skinny. Okay, I'm standing behind you. Scared me. You can see why this is good exercise for her. You can see how skinny Autumn's calves are, and that's because the muscles in her calves have atrophied over time. They're not able, the muscles here are what makes the ankles work, and since hers don't work, the muscles have slowly just died over time. It's called atrophy, and that's why her legs are just so tiny at the bottoms. She does have some muscle in the thigh, which helps keep it, some tone in that area, but she doesn't have any muscle on the back side from her butt down all the way down. So that's why she's so skinny on the back side as well. So Autumn's going to walk without any braces on now. You can note that she doesn't have control of her feet at all. She has to really pick her knees up to get her feet to swing through. And sometimes they kind of drag. Well, all the time they kind of drag. So it's much more difficult to walk, but yet she probably walks this way more just because she doesn't want to take the time to put the braces on. Okay, turn around. You'll notice that she does the right leg easier, and that's because that leg is stronger than the left leg.
This fall I am going to Utah State University to major in elementary education. I want to be a first or second grade teacher. I wanted to be able to have that degree there where I could work. My main dream is to have a family and be a school teacher, and I don't want much more than that, you know. Just the normal life. I want just the normal life.